Saludos a toda la afición de Lucha Libre Online. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de Lucha Libre Online. Y tenemos el enorme privilegio de presentarles a nuestro invitado especial en la tarde de hoy. Unos lo conocen como Seb Culture, pero nosotros acá en Puerto Rico lo conocemos como el sucio Dutch Mantel. En la primera entrevista que va a hacer en español en muchísimo tiempo. Dutch, it is an honor for us to have you as our guest. How are you recovering from your car accident?
I'm fine now. I just, I have great recuperative power, so I recovered fairly quickly from it. So,
man, I'm glad you're really doing okay. I just thank you so much, for being here. I want to start this interview asking you. You have already told the story how you broke into the wrestling industry, but part of your wrestling career was Puerto Rico. So I want to know, how do you start wrestling in this 35 miles country?
Well, back in those days, I was working out of Nashville, and Tom Ernesto, who was he was the infamous assassin from the Assassins team. I guess he and Carlos were friends, and they were talking one day, and Tom said, "Hey, I got this kid here that I think he could do something with. I think he'd catch on because he flies, he does this, he does good talker." So, and I went down there on January the 6th, or January 5th, sorry. And nobody told me they had I didn't know anything about Three Kings Day. I was January the 5th, I'm sitting in Atlanta and getting ready to go to Puerto Rico. And I'm saying, damn, what's the deal here? I mean, why so many people going to Puerto Rico? It was jam-packed. And hell, I didn't even know about Three Kings Day. A week after I was there, I was like, what is this? And they said, oh, it's a big holiday. It's like the second Christmas. I said, oh, okay. And so I went and started down there, and they put Frankie Lane with me. And at that point, I'd never even met Frankie Lane. They just put us together, called us the Cowboys or whatever they called us. Because see, Spanish, I had trouble with it. I still have trouble with it, but it's because I didn't study it. And the only formal education I had in Spanish was the curse words, because you learn them first. And we started doing a deal, the $1,000 challenge match, and it caught on, and we took off from there.
Once you arrived to Puerto Rico and you experienced the crowd for the first time, what do you recall of that first day of Dutch Mantel in WWC's office?
Oh, the first day?
That's correct, sir. The first day you wrestled here, the first day I'm in the stadium, the people, the reaction. What do you recall of that, that first day or first weeks wrestling in Puerto Rico?
Oh, it was wild. The first day was, of course, the January the 6th, the Three Kings holiday show, which traditionally, and even in the States, Christmas Day shows and New Year's Day shows, always they did well because people were off work. And we went into Roberto Clemente Coliseum. It was sold out. So I walked out there, and that had probably up to that point, probably the largest crowd I'd been in front of. And I said, man, this is, see, once you get the people there, then it's easy to sell them on something else. And we went into the dressing room and we started talking to them. They said, yeah, we want you guys to start. And would you come to the office Monday? And I'm thinking, what are we going to do in the office? I mean, I wasn't a booker. I didn't. And so on the way down there, Frankie Lane looked over at me, and he had a funny way of talking anyway. He went, well, Dutch, what are we going to tell him? I says, oh, I don't know. But I had heard from an old veteran years ago that he had one time $1,000 silver dollar challenge match, and I gave it to them, and they loved it because they don't have silver dollars there. He said, they told me. So they got to wherever they got silver dollars, they got them. And it was in a big fishbowl, and I guess it sat out there on the desk. And we did that for about 5 or 6 weeks. And then we did the big angle with Carlos and Jose, what was his last name? I can't remember his name. They had a son wrestle too at the time. They wrestled in New York.
Huracán Castillo, you were saying, or Perez, Miguel.
Well, yeah, but he came in a little later because he was a heel, and I'll think of his name in a minute. But we did that angle, and we went every Saturday night, and all the smaller shows were all sold out. And if the smaller shows didn't sell out, they were close to selling out. But I remember going. This was about May. We got there in January, February. We probably shot it in March. And it really took off about the middle of April all the way to June and July. So every show we went to on a Saturday night, stadium show or a big arena, all sold out. Set a record, actually. Somebody told me, said, you sold it out 9 times in a row, which had never been done before. And it will never be done. Not by, I don't even think WWE could do it now.
Not in Puerto Rico, man.
They can't do it anywhere because WWE, of course, they'll hit Chicago say 3 times a year and they're gone. They'll hit New York 5 times, 6 times, they're gone. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Miami, Dallas, all those things. And then they're gone. See, the key to wrestling was you had to have repeat business. And if you didn't have repeat business, you didn't have a business. You would go out of business. So, and that's how I actually learned to. All this time I was learning to book anyway, and I was learning to pace it. Coming up with angles, that's one thing. You got to pace these angles, and you can't get ahead of yourself, or the whole angle is ruined. And that's what a lot of young bookers, they ask me, well, how do you know? I said, well, I don't know. You'll know, or if it fails. See, I don't know. One guy said, how to do this angle. I said, yeah, but the angle is not the most important part of it. He said, what is? I said, that's your first shot. Your most important shot is your second, is how you follow that up. Because you can do an angle and kill it the next week. I've seen it done 100 times. So, but, that is talking shop there. But Puerto Rican people, very easy to work in front of, very loud, very demonstrative. See, one time I thought I was such a great wrestler. I was walking down the street, Isla Verde or someplace, and people were, hollering things. I thought it was because of my actual great wrestling ability, till I found out what they were saying. And then I found out, no, they really hated me because I was the first heel to come to Puerto Rico and really trash talk the island. I talked it, and I mean, the women were mad at me. The men were mad at me. See, I said one time, I said, the women are like, I didn't really say it this way, but the implication was they were like unpaid prostitutes. And they let it go. And then the men were effeminate. Oh my God. So and I do remember one time we had a barbed wire match. Roberto Clemente sold out hot because you get 60. I don't know how many people in the hold, 16,000. But we went to the ring and literally had to punch and kick our way to get to the ring with about 8 cops around us. Then we got in the ring, and I remember looking down that aisleway that wasn't an aisle anymore. It had filled in. And I told Frankie, I said, Frankie, you know something? He said, what? I said, in about 15 minutes, me and you are going to have to go down that same aisle we came in. And I doubt if those people are going anywhere. So get ready. And we lost the match. People still mad, and got out and had to fight our way through again. And it's not that far, but when it's packed with people, it's like an eternity. So, and the fans in Puerto Rico are notorious because they get violent, and especially we had security that night, but if you don't have security, you're on your own, buddy. You're just on your own. And I've quit about 10 times. I would just get back and dress to them, and I tell one of the referees, I say, hey, go over there and tell them I quit. Then over will come Jovica. Oh, doctor, let's just talk about it. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, you're going to, I'm going to get killed down here, man. All it takes is a knife stuck in me. I said, anyway, but that's, so when people talk about, and young wrestlers talk about getting heat nowadays, they don't know what they're talking about. See, they just had I don't know, you may have seen it on Twitter or something. It's called CWG or something. And they had everybody threw stuff into the ring.
GCW.
Yeah. And they thought that was heat. I said, that's not heat. They're not even mad at the guy. I said, even if they're mad, I said, they're probably mad at the finish. They're probably mad at the promotion. And I says, and I heard it was set up anyway. See, you get 3 or 4 plants out there and they start throwing stuff and nobody does nothing. Well, everybody else goes, it's monkey see, monkey do. And that's what they did. And I was telling them, if that had been a real bona fide riot, somebody would have tried to hit the ring, and old Zack Ryder or whatever his name is, Cardona, he would have left. If he's got any sense, he'd be gone. So, and then people attack me on Twitter. Oh man, you're just saying these guys today don't know what you're doing. Which is what I said, but I don't know. I try to stay away from Twitter as much as I can.
It's the best thing. The correct question wouldn't be, did you ever receive death threats in Puerto Rico? But how often do you receive death threats from the fans in Puerto Rico because of the heat you have here?
Oh, I never get death threats in Puerto Rico.
Never.
What, now? Back then? No. Well, they may have issued a death threat, but probably did it in Spanish, so I don't know what they were saying. When they say, I kill you in Spanish, I went, oh, whatever. Yeah. No, I don't think they wanted to kill me. This is the deal about fans. They don't really want to kill the heel. They just want to mess them up. See what I mean? See, if you took the biggest heel in the world and took him in the ring and just beat him right in the middle and he laid there, and the people go, they see it and they go, that's it? They want the heel to get up and be mad and pissed off and mad at the people because that's what they like. But yeah, I never got any death threats that I'm aware of. I'm glad that if I did get some, I'm glad they didn't tell me because I wouldn't have went to the ring.
What do you recall of, I mean, you work with so many talent in your whole career, but there was a guy in Puerto Rico named Rey Gonzalez, a young guy at one point that grew basically because of your work. So what do you recall of that early days of Rey Gonzalez? Did you ever thought that, he was going to be such a big star in the island? Y estamos aquí de regreso con el sucio Dutch Mantel. Tuvimos unos asuntos técnicos en la entrevista que tuvimos que, por eso es que están viendo esto en momentos diferentes. Dutch, I'm explaining to the fans that we have some technical issues. That's where we're seeing a different shirt and everything. The important part is that you're here with us today. And our next question is regarding a superstar in Puerto Rico they call Rey Gonzalez Sr. You were an important part of his career. What do you recall when you saw Rey for the first time? And do you thought that he was going to be a big superstar?
Well, he was a good-looking guy, good in the ring, good talker, even though I didn't understand clearly what he was talking about. He didn't stumble around, and he knew, and he got a response from the fans. And that's the first thing I look at a performer or a wrestler, is his ability to connect. Now, you can see a lot of guys that actually do great stuff in the ring, but something is missing with them because they're not connecting with the fans. Something's missing. So, but Rey, I think, had it all. And I told him one time, I said, you need to go to WWF. I think it was WWE. It was WWE then. Oh, when I first met him, it was still WWF. I said, you need to go there. I said, I think you would do well. And he said, I don't know. Because I think WWF kind of intimidated him a little bit. But if he'd have got there, he would have found out he was better than those guys and would have done well. Plus, he would be the Hispanic or Spanish-speaking performer that they like to have. Back in the old days of the WWF, when Bruno was there, they always had like Pedro Morales around, yeah. And he was the champion for, I don't know, 3 years or something. But and especially in a metro center like New York City, A lot of Hispanics lived there. And so, and they ran with him for a long, long time. I think Ray would have found, they may not have been champion all, but I think he would have, he would have been a big star in WWF, and I think in WWE if he'd have gotten there. So, but I told him, and it was up to him. But I think he liked Puerto Rico. He liked being around people he knew, and he felt comfortable with. And if you feel comfortable with something, and you're not, dying to make like $1 million, I think Ray's family had money because his father owned a store and he owned some more stuff. And so I think Ray not only was good in the ring, I think he was raised right by his parents. And I enjoyed Ray, and I thought he would always have a great future in wrestling.
Perfect. There's a certain issue that happened in Puerto Rican pro wrestling. And I'm talking about Bruiser Brody's death. Besides what happened backstage and, the Kurt make his decision and everything, but do you think Brody's passing directly affected the industry in Puerto Rico economically?
Oh, yeah, it did. Because I had left years earlier. It happened in 1988. And I had left like in 1980, 1981. And I made occasional, appearances there, but not much. And business was still pretty good. But I think after Brody's death, I think a lot of American wrestlers, people like to say they boycotted the island. I don't think they boycotted it as much as we're afraid to go there. Because if something like that could happen to Brody in the dressing room, I think everybody feared that something could happen to them. So I think they didn't go to Puerto Rico because one thing, they were afraid. And the second thing is they just didn't want to go because of what happened to Brody. Yeah, it affected the island quite a bit.
In terms of segments and TV shows in Puerto Rico, you, as far as we know, we interviewed El Exótico or El Paparazzi, and he mentioned that you were the person responsible for creating La Familia del Milenio at one point, and what we knew was, their TV segment. How do you manage to put all those people together in one same group and make it work? Because yes, they were good, but they weren't, the top notch at that time. So do you saw potential in that group? How do you manage to make it work?
Well, a lot of people have asked me, you didn't speak Spanish. I said, no. And I still don't speak Spanish more now than I did then. I still don't speak it. But the thing I always say about Puerto Rico was a great area for wrestling. Always has been, except after the Bruiser Brody years when the people just said, they just had a bad feeling about it. But this is what I always worked when I booked a territory. I didn't necessarily book angles per se, but I booked stuff that appealed to the heart. I don't care if you speak Zambodian, or if you speak Russian or Chinese or Spanish or English. If you touch them here in the heart, you got them. And the heart is the same the world over. You tell a good story and they'll follow. See, my stories had starts and they had middles, but they really didn't have ends because I always left the ends open in case I wanted to go back to it. So, and what I was thinking about before I did this interview today, I don't think the Puerto Rican wrestling fans realized how much of a force they've been on the wrestling profession as a whole. Because I was here right at the start of the 80s, and it was just sellout business. But it was new. It was new then, because then you had all your American guys, and the company was basically new. When I came down here, the first time I came here, I thought the company had been in business like 10 years or something. I didn't know, 20. Then I got here and found out they'd only been in business like 2 or 3 years. So I went, wow, what did I get myself into? I mean, you need to know more than that before you commit yourself to a job or to a territory. but the business was red hot. And I came in with Frankie Lane, and I didn't even know Frankie before we got here. And I may have started to tell this story back on the part that you showed earlier, but the first day I got there was January the 5th, which is the day before January the 6th. And I remember I did say this, and I'm thinking, why all this traffic in the middle of the week? What's going on down there? I knew it was a tourist resort, but I said, it's not that strong. So then I got down there and I found out it was like the second Christmas. It was Three Kings Day. And we went to what's the big building called? Roberto Clemente.
The Roberto Clemente Stadium. Yep.
Yep. Went to sold out, packed. And that's where I got my first touch of how anxious and dedicated that the Puerto Rican fans were. I mean, we got in the ring and they didn't know us from Adam's house cat. But it's like we'd been there for 6 months. It was just they booed us up and down. So we had that match and came out of the ring. And I remember Carlos wanted to come down to the office and talk to him about what we wanted to do. And I had I'd never been asked that before. See, Puerto Rico was my first opportunity to be used as a main event. Well, I was in Tennessee and I was used as the main event, but as a babyface, as a good guy. So I went down there as a heel, and I told Carlos we'd like to do the $1,000 challenge match, and he threw his 2 cents in, and then I threw my 2 cents in. So we started that, and I think it ended up is that any team that we couldn't beat within 10 minutes, we'd give them $1,000 silver dollars. And Carlos said, well, they don't have silver dollars here, but we'll get some, and they did. And we ended up going from there. I think about May, maybe the end of April, start of May, we shot this big angle and we went outside 9 times and we sold out 9 times in a row on Saturday night. And it's never been done before. And I doubt it ever will be, it'll be done today because, but I think the Puerto Rican people, fans should be proud that their home territory was actually had a lot to do with the overall wrestling business and what they saw in the 80s. And then what they saw when I took back over in 2001, 2002 or 2000, it was like, we got ratings that were primetime ratings at 1:00 in the afternoon with the IWA. And somebody asked me, how did you get from IWA, from Carlos's WWC to IWA? And it was money, basically, it's a profession. That's why you get paid. And I had asked for more money and was kind of denied. And I'm thinking, well, we're doing this good business and plus the ratings. And I didn't know at the time that they were actually sharing the money, as I understand it. They were sharing their ad money with the WWC office. They never told me that, because when you have an hour and a half, that's what it was then, an hour and a half of wrestling, 2 days of the week, Saturday and Sunday. And that brings me to the Millennium, Cafe del Millennium.
Cafe del Milenio.
So I went to Carlos and I said, hey, why don't we do a separate show, and a 30-minute show that just features the heels. And we can go on like 11 o'clock at night. And then we'll do this crazy thing. And we don't have any baby faces to rebut us. We just tell lies and do whatever we do. So Carlos said, I got a better idea, of course. So I says, he went to them and presented it, but he said, their idea is, why don't we just incorporate it and make it a 2-hour show instead of an hour and a half? I says, well, that was the TV's decision. And I said, okay. And we started with Milenio Cafe. What was it?
El Café del Milenio.
Oh yeah. And it was just like friends. We was like in this little bar and we were talking this and that and the other. And, I guess it was pretty interesting. Exotico was great. He was just hilarious. Even when he'd have his matches, nobody took him seriously, but he was so entertaining. You had to keep him on the show. And Ray was good. And who else was in that? Cafe del Millennium. Wasn't it Jose Rivera Jr.? Wasn't he in it? Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that again?
No, who was in All In Cafe del Millennium? Jose.
Ray, you have Ray Gonzalez over there. You have Chiqui Star. You have El Exótico, who was El Paparazzi as well. There were a few guys over there. Yeah.
Jose. What was his name? Jose who?
I think
his father.
Estrada, Rico Suave. You're mentioning.
Rico Suave.
Yeah. Julio Estrada.
And but it did well. I mean, we were doing primetime ratings, and the business was good, and so. And the fans, to me, I booked Puerto Rico because I didn't book it. You remember DX, right? When they go, suck it.
Yeah.
Well, see, we didn't do any of that stuff because I thought I didn't want to do it for kids. But see, if you don't draw the kids, you're not going to draw anybody. So we made it, I always made my angles so clear, I think, I tried to anyway, that even a 10-year-old kid could understand it. And if a 10-year-old kid can understand it and explain it to somebody else, then everybody understands it. And I remember one year down there, Dave Meltzer awarded me, this is about 2001, I think. He awarded me Booker of the Year. He didn't really like me, but he had no choice because the country only had two companies then. They had WWC and WWE. But he said one time, it takes Dutch so long to shoot the angle. And what I wanted to tell him was, look, we're selling out already. Why would I shoot an angle when I can just take my time and kind of mold and shape what I want it to turn out like? But he didn't understand that. But and I always worked under the thought, don't go too far in an angle that you can't stop and come back a little bit. And the reason I did that is, sometimes angles just don't work. One guy gets hurt, one guy leaves, one guy gets mad. So if you got to back it up, it's not like you're responding solely to that. It's like you planned it the whole time. But they were very receptive to almost everything I did. And one of the easiest crowds to work in front of. Easy. You just go out there and stand there. Ray used to do it. He'd go to the ring and he'd just stand there and look at them. And they go nuts. So, but I enjoyed my time in Puerto Rico, except for the times that the people actually wanted to kill me. I didn't really enjoy those times too much. But it was a good learning experience for me. And I think a lot of guys, I gave them a chance who hadn't been given a chance before. And one thing that nobody ever talks about is when I jumped from WWC to IWA, I didn't bring anybody in, nor did I send anybody out. Nobody lost their job, and I didn't give anybody a job because the place was on its butt. So I remember when I went down there, I think Carlos, we were doing, for Carlos at WWC, we were doing like a 12 to a 14 rating on a regular basis. One time I did an 18 there. Why? I don't know. It must have rained that day. People stayed in and watched the wrestling show. So when I left, because I didn't think I was getting the money I should be getting, Victor Quinones, hang on, guys. Victor Quinones, he wanted to talk to me. So, and I went down there and I said, well, listen, I don't think we need to, this is what I want. I said, I give him a money amount, give me a ticket home every month so I can go back and forth. So, and he said, okay, and you start. So I left, I think around Christmas, I don't know, 2000, and come back on January the 6th. That January 6th pops up in there again. January the 6th, 2001, and started. So all of a sudden I was here, and then I was there. And when I left, the IWA was doing like a 2.6 rating. And I think I made them mad on the first meeting I had with them, with Victor and all of them, and Savio and Miguel. I said a 2.6 ratings where Carlos was doing 12 to 14s. I mean, actually, they were killing IWA. And I said, as a 2.6 rating, I said, guys, not to be rambunctious here, but a 2.6 rating, hell, a damn Viagra commercial will get a 2.6 rating. And I thought, so I said, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" They said, "Well, we're doing this and this and this." And I said, "Okay, we're gonna dump that." No, they said, you don't understand. We did this and this and this. I said, "No, I did hear you, but you don't understand. We're going to dump it." They said, "Why?" I said, "It's drawing you a 2.6 rating. So let's start all over." And they said, "Okay." And we started, and all of a sudden, if the 2.6 rating was here, and Carlos was up here in the first week, just a little bit. The second week, a little better, And it's about 2 months, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and we were like right in here, but we hadn't jumped ahead of it. And then about 3 months in, we did this big show. We brought Kane in. It jumped up over him. Then the next week, it jumped back down. And then the next week, we jumped on top and stayed on top for the next 3 years. So, and one thing you do, if you're trying to book something, it's like telling a story. You're telling it fresh every week. And it's not like you're sitting down to write a book. But see, I would just watch what happened and because I would book the next show on Sunday. I wouldn't sit down and write, well, we're going to do this here, and then the next week we're going to do this, and then the next week we're going to do this. I booked it with like a 6-day notice. So I booked what was fresh on their minds. So, and it worked. And the way I could tell that we were going to sell out, we used to go to that building what was that building right outside town? I mean, a nice building.
Do you remember the town it was located?
It was, that's what I'm trying to think of. We did TV there a lot on Saturday night.
Bayamón, La Pepín Cestero, the court, the basketball court.
Yes. What's the name of it?
Pepín Cestero, Bayamón.
That's it. So I would go in that building, and I loved that building for wrestling. It was a great building for wrestling. So we would go in there, and how I knew we were going to sell out is when I pulled up and there was a line out front waiting to buy tickets. That's a good sign. And then I would go, and before I would do anything for the show, I'd go get me a couple, and I'd just watch the people come in. And the show started at 8:30. I'd start handling the show about 10 after 8. And that's what I do. And then when the guy said, well, what about this? What about that? I said, yeah, right, sounds good. Let's do it. Because I always give the talent input. And they went out and they worked hard. And, we used to go outside to those stadiums a lot. And we had some great houses outside too. I had Banderas there, and Apollo, and Zabio, and Ray, and Chicky, and Shane. Yeah. So, and we made our own stars. See, WWE, then they was trying to tell me what to do at one point. Why don't you do this? And I said, are you guys paying me? They said, well, no, but it's just kind of like it's like a developmental territory. I said, well, developmental without the money, because I'm not getting a dime for this. They were paying their talent to come in. And so that lasted, it didn't last long, because I just told them, they wanted me to write a report every week on their talent and what their talent was doing. So this was my reports. I'd say, like D'Lo Brown. D'Lo Brown is very good, and blah, 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 blah. And he's coming along good. That's it. And he had another guy with him and somebody else. So the next week I'd write, D'Lo is doing great, and blah, 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 and he's coming along well. I did it about 3 weeks till I found out nobody was reading it. So I just quit sending it. And they never said anything about it. So, but they sent talent in there to get experience. But yet, they weren't paying me to give them experience. I was like an instructor, I guess. It's almost like NXT now. because those guys don't work for nothing. They're paying them, but they didn't give me anything. So I said, hey, you're on your own, guys. So, but it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. And I think the days of Puerto Rico drawing like that, I don't think they're, I'm not saying it because we did big business, but I don't see how it can come back. Because you don't have the talent. I don't think you have the, who's running down there now? Tell me that.
Right
Isn't
now,
there a new company? Isn't there a new company started up?
yeah, the new company with Orlando and Eddie Colon, Law, LAWE.
Yeah. And
They haven't run a show yet. IWA with Sabio Vega are doing closed door events. They had a pay-per-view recently. They are allied to MLW from the US. Among them, a shit ton of independent companies that are not doing anything. But yeah, WWC is not doing anything as well. So there's nothing here.
mm-hmm. It's a good place for it, but it's like anything else. If you almost do too many TV shows, it's too much. So, and things change. Things that got over 20 years ago won't get over today. And I don't know. I think the fan has changed too, not only in the United States, but in Puerto Rico too. You got your woke crowd. You can't do a lot of stuff now that you could do then, especially with guys like Exotico, because the people used to give him hell. But you couldn't do that now. They'd all want to cancel you out and do all this kind of stuff. So kind of, if you spend most of your time worried about that, you can't get anything done.
I wanted to ask you, a big moment inside the wrestling industry was when Sabio Vega turned heel and, you created this monster heel that no one saw coming. I mean, we thought another person was going to do the treason, but Sabio did. And at the same time, you created two megastars in Puerto Rico with Ricky Banderas and Shane. So you create a top heel and two top baby faces all in one night. How do you manage to do this?
It's called pacing. Remember what I'm saying, that you don't get ahead of yourself. Well, I sat down and I didn't write it down anywhere. I just had it in my head. So we're going to take Shane and Banderas, and we were going to kind of blow it off that night. That was like the Christmas show.
Yeah.
And then remember that night, that's when Ray was going to take the mask off.
Yeah.
Was it that? So I got him in there and I said, well, Sabio, this is what we want to do. Because he could buy out of the contract. And Sabio said, yeah, I'll let you buy out of the contract. I watched this back. It was one of the biggest pops I've ever seen, especially when Ray hit Sabio. The house came in. And then he beat the hell out of, what was the manager's name?
Chaparro, I think he was his manager at that point.
Yeah, he was like a former senator or something. What was his name?
Oh, the senator was Fernando Tonos, but Chaparro was the person that was managing Ray.
He was a walking heat magnet. But yeah, that was probably one of the most memorable nights in Puerto Rican history, because they had pop back to back. Then we had 2 weeks to build for coming back on the January the 6th show, and we took off again, just running with it. So, and Luke was helping me book then. And I said, Luke, this is what we're going to do. You handle the early matches. And because, I didn't even do that much thinking on this. I said, this is what we're going to do. And wasn't Ray aligned with Cheeky and Victor?
Ray came in
at that time.
Yeah, he was, but he came in with the suit and the mask and then the Ray Phoenix character at that point.
Yeah. And then I remember that night, I think Ray, Cheeky, and Victor hit the ring and started beating the crap out of Ray, and Sabio stopped him, get back. And then he turned to the guys like, what the hell are you guys doing? And he looked at Ray, you okay? Ray stood up and he kicked him. And the place went, oh my God. Now they saw what a bastard building to. Now, what a no good bastard he was. And he was a really, really good heel, because he would talk things. You remember the time when he had Miguel's mother move all the way down to the basement? It took the whole show to do it. Well, he went in there and he said, what was Miguel's mother's name? You remember?
She was on The Office. He was a lot on.
Yeah.
I don't remember her name.
Yeah, she was like the secretary. And Savio went in there and he said, listen, I don't know. He said, it's awful cold in here. You know, you're going to get sick. I got you another office. And that's when Arbiella was coming in.
Yep.
And he wanted to bring her in and get Miguel's mother out. So, and he took her down the steps. And this went like several segments, just pieces like 14th floor, then the 10th floor, and she's kind of breathing hard and get down to the 7th floor. And Sabbath said, come on, we're never going to get down there. So he finally goes into a dusty office. It was like a thread that run all the way through the show. And then when he got her down there, it was dirty and nasty. And that was one of the first words I learned in Spanish, sucio, dirty, sucio, dirty. So, and he said, oh, it's okay. Listen, I'll send you some rags and some Windex down here. You can spend your time just cleaning the place up. And she says, but how, no telephone, Savio. We said, that's okay. If you got something to ask me, just run up and ask me. Run up 14 flights of stairs and ask me. And then as soon as he did that, then he went, pushed the elevator button, and there was Gabriella. Oh, he was just all over. Oh, you're like this. Can you type? No. Can you take dictation? No. Can you answer the phone? Yeah. I said, oh, you work perfect. Come on in. And that's how it started. And that's how I made him. I kept making him like a bigger piece of crap than, he was putting out. And he was good. And he was so good that people wanted to see him sweat and worry. Do you remember the time when we said that somebody got into the office and got that paper that nobody was supposed to see?
To have, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And went through it, and he was trying to get into the office, and Gabriella was there, and he says, give me how do you get in it? And Tona says, Savio, I've heard that you can take like a credit card and you can like jiggle the lock a little bit. Oh, you got one? Oh, no, I can't be involved in that. That would be against the law. That would be against my ethics. And Savio was in there, it's great. And then finally, Arbiella says, what are you talking about? That paper in that thingamajiggy you were talking about. He says, the piece of paper. She says, oh, I got that 2 weeks ago. What? You got it? And then he kissed her. Oh, I love you. I love you. Love you. And then the show ended with Savio sitting there in his shorts, smoking 2 cigars. And Arbiella was running paper through the paper shredder, getting rid of the evidence. He said, you got to get up pretty early in the morning to beat Savio Vega. Oh. And it just, some of that stuff just happened. I just thought of a story and let's do it. But for me to see it, you got to let the fans see it. And that's what we did. And we had who is Moody.
Moody.
Moody?
Yeah, the Spanish commentator.
Tremendous.
And producer, great guy.
Oh, he was tremendous. So one time, how Moody got the name is because he was a moody little bastard. He would sit down, and he was suffering all the time. Oh, I said, and I gave him the name Moody. I didn't call him Moody. I said, you're moody, man. You're moody all the time. Blah, 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 blah. And one day he wanted to quit and kill himself. Then the next day you wanted him to quit and kill yourself. But then finally one day he just left. He was like a Monday. And he left. And I said, where's Moody? He'll be in tomorrow. Somebody said, okay. This Tuesday came, no Moody. I said, what the hell? Maybe he was serious. Maybe he's not coming in. And Wednesday come, Moody's not there. And I'm thinking, what the hell? See, Moody did the TV layout. I told him what I wanted and he'd play it out. Probably about 1 o'clock, in walked Moody. In a good mood, by the way. And I said, I wanted to kill him before. But then when he walked in, I said, oh, God, I'm so glad to see you. Let's go to work. And he said, okay. And he was fine. But Moody, I really like that guy. He's really, really good.
He was really
How
good
did you
at what
meet?
he
How,
did.
how did you meet him? Just through wrestling?
Moody's currently a Spanish commentator for Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, I helped him get that job.
He's a great
He
guy.
called me one. He called me one day. He said, "I don't know what to do." Blah blah blah. I said, "Get on the phone. Call some of these people up. Call Impact. Call somebody. Call WWE. Call." And he did. And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Do it. Good." But they don't know you're looking till you tell them. And you've worked there before, so go back. They know who you are. So I don't know how they do the show. I guess they do it live with the Spanish guys, or they come in and do a voiceover?
The pay-per-views, they did it live with the Spanish guys. They added now Hector Cabanfrodo, who's also a producer in Puerto Rico as well.
Okay. But that time in Puerto Rico, I went down there and didn't know nothing and learned a lot. By that time, when I first came to Puerto Rico, I'd never left the country but one time. That was when I was in the Army. I left the country. Hell, I didn't know one thing about Puerto Rico. I thought it was a different country, to tell you the truth. I didn't know it belonged to the United States. I learned all that later. Nobody told me. So, but I enjoyed it. Any more questions for me?
Yes, I have one regarding how you brought Invader to IWA. You know, I thought you guys didn't got well. However, you managed to bring him to the IWA. Whose idea was to bring Invader 1 to IWA and make it work so well? Because to me, he did great work with WWC, but IWA was completely different.
It was Quinones' idea. Yeah. And initially, I resisted it because I said, I don't think we need him. And he said, well, to make, and he had a point. I'm not saying he didn't have a point. But after what had happened, I thought it was okay for business, but disrespectful in a personal way. So, but Quinones, since he was signing the check, and so if I'm going to bring him in, I'm going to make it work. But the Invader is very, very obstinate when it comes to working with him. Because if he don't like something, I don't like that. I don't like it. When I first got down there, I sent him a finish one night. My first night for WWC. Back in the 90s, I sent him a finish. He sent the referee back and says, Invader no like. He want another finish. So I said, okay, well, I'll give him another finish. He was winning. Referee come back. Invader no like. Send another one. Now I got the point. I said, oh, okay. I think he's messing with me. I sent another one. So referee come back, same thing. He want another finish. I said, you tell the Invader to send me one and we'll do that one. Don't ever ask me for another finish again. And from the time, that was like, I don't know when it was, say it's January, but for the time I left by November, I never gave him another finish. I always made him come up with his own finish, but he'd have to clear it with me. Then I would say, I don't like that one, do another one.
You burned the papers.
Yeah, he never caught on to it. I said, yeah, you can do it. You just got to run it by me. So he'd run it by me, nah, come up with something else. So if he's going to be that way, I wasn't doing anything that was going to hurt him. It was always in the positive. But no, he's going to be a butthole, and he didn't like stuff. So okay, he can do what he wants to do. But I never gave him another finish ever.
You created
and when I brought him back for that big show with wasn't it Apollo and Ray?
Yeah, in the Summer Attitude, Roberto Clemente Stadium.
It packed, sold out. Yeah. And he didn't hurt the show. It just added what they call the flavor for it. It's like you got this great big birthday cake and you put everything on it, but all of a sudden, let's light the candle. And that's basically what it did. We just put a little trimming on it to make it look bigger than what it actually was.
So also going to mention, you created many superstars inside the wrestling industry, but one of those guys you helped create was the Monster Abyss. I remember seeing him in Puerto Rico, wrestling in Coto Laurel here in Ponce, where I live, among many other places. How do you find him?
I found him in the States here on an independent show up in somewhere, Indiana, somewhere. And I went to Puerto Rico. But I had known him before. So I found him on a TNA show. I found him on an independent show first. And then several months later, he was on a TNA show. And he was big, loved the business. So, and I said, how long are you going to be here? He said, oh, I'm going to be here a long time. They're going to use me well. I said, okay. He called me the next week. He wanted to come. I said, wait a minute. Thought you said they were going to use you good. Well, yeah, man. And he's a worrier. He'll drive you nuts worrying about stuff. And you can look at him sometimes. He's like this. He's just worried. So he called me up and he said, yeah, they said they were going to use me but I don't know. I'm not even on next week's TV. I said, man, I wish you'd. And I had a spot for him, but I was just kidding him. I said, man, I wish you'd have called me 30 minutes ago. He said, why? I said, I just filled the spot. Oh, no. I said, well, wait a minute. Listen, call me back in about an hour. Let me see if I can do some rearranging here. And I didn't have to rearrange nothing. And he called me back. He said, you got anything? I said, well, maybe, but I said, but only if you're willing to do this. He said, what? I said, listen, his name was, I can hear y'all. Hang on. I have people talking in the room. They have I'll have to get up and stomp on them in a minute. But so he went. So I said, I'm gonna have to. He went as Prince Justice. And I says, what does that mean? He said, well, I don't know. I says, and how do you say that in Spanish?
Prince Justice?
Prince Justice.
Príncipe Justicia, which makes no sense for a guy like that.
I said, that's a stupid name. Why, man? I said, I want you to come in under another name. He said, well, what will I tell my fans here? I said, what, all 7 of them? I don't know. Tell them something else. I said, I want to call you Abyss. What? I said, yeah, I'm going to put you under the mask. And it worked. Brought him in and made him like a killer. Put him with Sabio. He was over the first night because I brought him in and put him in that match with, it was a cage match out at the stadium in Bayamon, I think. And he tried to, anyway, he got over. And he stayed about 9 months. He got a lot of training. That guy's only worked a couple of places. He worked Puerto Rico, he worked TNA, and now he's producing for WWE. That's what he's doing now. So he learned his job. I like that guy. Really great talent. If you don't have to talk to him, I mean, he will wear you out. And it's little things, but he thought about it. That's what I liked about it. He thought about everything. So when he finally came to you with his finished product, you didn't have to change it much. Just say, I would do this and this and this. Oh, yeah, you're right. And he changed it. So he was good.
Dutch, before we go to our last question, I wanted to thank you so much for your time, for being here with us today. Why did you left IWA after so many years with them? And did Victor Quiñones ever try to hold you back in the office for, so you avoid living?
What did Quiñones try to do? What?
So did Quiñones try to hold you back once you decided to left IWA?
No, again, IWA was money because I had an offer from TNA because I would bring Jeff Jarrett there and he'd walk out in those big stadiums and he'd look up there and he'd see 16,000 people. Wait a minute. They all bought a ticket to see this? What the hell are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know, just doing that wrestling stuff, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. And I really couldn't describe it, to tell you the truth. I had it in my head, but to describe it, it would take too long. So I went in there one day and I said, hey, listen, guys, I want to tell you, I got another offer, and this is what they've offered. And if you guys can match that, I won't leave. And he just sat there and looked at me. I said, okay, I got my answer then. Got up. I was gone 2 weeks. And then where the ratings were up here, it didn't show for about a month. And then it dropped a little bit, and drop a little bit, drop a little bit. And the ratings were still decent, but still they were dropping because of the hangover from the other stuff I had done. To draw a 14 rating, a 15 rating, one time a 18. I set the record for me. I set the record in WWC with an 18-1 one time. And then the closest I came to it was like a 17-7 with IWA. And like I'm saying, that's prime time numbers on a morning show and an afternoon show. So, and I've been, and people in the States would ask me, how do you do that? You don't even speak Spanish. I said, language is highly overrated. I said, you get you a good, translator, and that knows what you want. So he describes it and you can do it. So, but it was why I left the IWA was basically for money. Plus I'd been away for almost 2.5 years, 3 years. So I was kind of ready to go home anyway, but all he had to do was say, yeah, we give you the money. You know how much money we were talking?
How much?
$500 a week. That's what we were talking.
So that's,
and he was dead.
That's $2,000.
It's nothing. It's nothing. That's what I'm saying. I mean, when you're doing 16,000 people at those shows, hell, one of those shows would have made up all the 500 for a year. And I know that it's dollars and cents, but you pay who you got to pay. Otherwise, you fall off the map. And when I left, it started dropping, which I knew it would, but it wouldn't drop right away because the angles were so well defined. So all you had to do was follow what had been done. But not only do you have to follow what has been done, but you got to branch off those angles too. And I don't know what they did. So, but I left Moody in charge, and Moody he did a good job. So that's why I went. That answer to your question?
That's correct, sir. We want to, as mentioned, thank you so much for sharing your stories with both WWC and IWA, telling us a little bit of why Puerto Rican pro wrestling changed for good and the bad. And man, thank you very much. It's been an honor, an absolute honor to have you as our guest, Dutch. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Well, one thing I say about IWA, anything I wanted to do, there was never any pushback. They said, you're in charge and you do it. And so I did it. So I didn't have to. And another thing I liked about Carlos and IWA was there's no creative team to go through. I'd rather take a bullwhipping at sunup than to go through a creative team and listen to a bunch of guys talk about wrestling. And most of these guys, WWE, they're just fans without buying a ticket. They were fans growing up, and they probably took creative writing in school and think they can write a wrestling show. It takes you got to have a feeling for what you're doing. Unless you have that feeling, you're just like shooting in the dark. You don't know what you're hitting. But see, and I grew up under the old territorial system and watched a lot of different bookers, how they did certain things. And I'd watch Jerry Jarrett in Memphis. Then I'd watch Lawler. Lawler's a great booker when he wants to, but he only books for like 3 or 4 months because he gets distracted. And he told me, he said, I don't want to do this. He said, I can do it 3 or 4 months. And he's very creative with it. But then he said, I grow tired of it because I get bored. And then I watched Bill Watts. Then I watched Dusty, Eddie Graham, great mind in the business. And you never hear about this guy, but Ron Fuller.
No, I never heard.
Great. They had great minds about what they wanted to put out and drew a lot of money. So I learned under all those guys. And somebody says, well, how do you, I said, your greatest baseball manager was never your greatest player. You know why that is?
What?
Because they were second string. They spent most of their time in the dugout watching the manager manage the game. So they said, why do you put a right-hander in against this batter? And he tells him, or why do you do this? Now they have what they call analytical stats that they follow. Like you go to put a left-hander in there and you can look it up, his percentages of hitting against the right-hander. And that's how they do baseball now. I didn't do baseball. I didn't do wrestling like that, but I kind of had the idea that's what you have to do. So I'm glad to be here. I want to tell all the people in Puerto Rico, and because I know Puerto Rico's had a lot of problems lately, the hurricanes and all this stuff. And,
earthquakes.
Oh yeah, the earthquake and all this kind of stuff. And so I want to wish them a lot of success. And I hadn't been down there since probably 2004. No, I was down there for
2006, I believe, was the last time you were here.
No, I went down there and I was with Ray for what does WWC call their big shows of the year?
Aniversario.
Yeah, I went down there about 4 years ago.
Yeah,
but I didn't do nothing, so I sit around. I'd hurt my legs, so I was like being in a wheelchair and being pushed around, but I enjoyed it. So listen, if you need anything else, don't hesitate to call, and glad to make your acquaintance and enjoyed the show.
Man, it's been, as mentioned, more than an honor to have you here in Lucha Libre Online, sharing your time here in Puerto Rico. So let's wrap it up in Spanish. Este fue el sucio, el legendario Dutch Mantel y Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online, la marca número 1 de Pro Wrestling y Combat Sports en español.